Well, greetings and welcome to the SoCon Report podcast, a podcast presented by Family Policy Alliance. My name is Joseph Combe. I serve as the Director of Public Policy at FPA, and I'll be your host for the show this morning. We've been on a bit of a hiatus lately, but we are back, and we have a great legislative update for you from a key battleground state this morning. And we have a great guest joining us from that state, specifically from our State Family Policy Council in that state. Joining us today is my friend, colleague, and law school classmate, Brittany Jones. She is the Director of Policy and Engagement for Kansas Family Voice, which, as I said, is the State Family Policy Council for Kansas. So, Brittany, such a pleasure to have you on here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Joseph. And it's a pleasure to be with all of you guys and my long friends at Family Policy Alliance, and especially you, who I go back many, many years with. So it's just a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's great to have you. And we're excited for what you have to tell us this morning about Kansas, because there's a lot going on there. It's what we would call a purple state. You guys have a pretty Republican legislature, but you definitely have a Democrat governor, too, to balance things out. So that presents unique challenges for you all in trying to pass good, socially conservative, pro-family policy. So I'm going to ask you about a couple of those this morning. And I want to start with a campaign that has been a centerpiece of FPA's policy efforts around the country, which is our Help Not Harm campaign. Kansas has been trying to pass Help Not Harm for a couple of years now, and they're really close this year. FPA has been fortunate enough to provide some assistance to y'all, but it's really been you guys at Kansas Family Voice who have driven the bus on this for the last couple of years, and you're really close. So you're trying to become the 23rd state to pass a Help Not Harm bill. Tell us about SB 233 and the effort behind it.
Yeah, so we have been trying. We've introduced bills on this subject for the last couple of years. We came so close last year to getting this across the line. It failed by one vote in the Senate. We're going to have to do some work in the House last year, too. But in Kansas, we have a Democratic governor, but we have a supermajority of Republicans in both the House and the Senate. But that doesn't mean that those Republicans always agree on the issues. There's a lot of varying degrees of commitment to protecting kids within that body. And so we have had to work very hard to build a coalition of people who will support kids and protect kids at all stages. And so we were able to pass that bill last year, but the governor vetoed it, and we were not able to override that veto. So we came back this year and we're like, well, we have a similar makeup in our body in both of our chambers. And so how do we make this happen? And so we have partnered with Family Policy Alliance, with Heritage, with another group called Do No Harm, to build a bill that not only protects kids, but ensures that those who are detransitioning or those who are currently on different cross-sex hormones or different hormones, puberty blockers, that sort of thing, have a time to transition off of those treatments or procedures or whatever we're calling them these days. And so that has really helped us build a coalition that can actually override a governor's veto. And so last week we sent SB 233 to the governor's desk. We are fully expecting her to veto it again. She is in the pocket of the LGBTQ activist and basically does whatever they tell her to do. And so we are expecting that veto, but we are prepared to override that veto. It went to the governor in both chambers with a veto-proof majority. And so as long as everyone sticks together, we should be able to override that veto.
Well, congratulations on that, Brittany. First of all, I mean, like you said, it's a multi-year effort. We've seen that in other states, and that's due to your hard work. And I want to just say to the supporters of both Kansas Family Voice, Family Policy Alliance, the socially conservative audience that is listening right now, you are the ones that have joined us in getting this done. It's taken years sometimes. And yes, in politics, we tend to think in the next 30 seconds. But these really needed efforts to protect vulnerable children, none of whom are ever born in the wrong body, are really important. And this is an encouragement to our audience. And I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Do No Harm Medicine, who have been a critical ally on the Help Not Harm campaign. Many of those 22, hopefully soon 23 states would never have passed those bills without their help. So, Brittany, I want to ask you just a quick follow-up and then just ask you how, well, first of all, how can the supporters just pray for you guys that this bill gets passed? And then just tell us, what's the difference between this year and last year? I mean, you said last year you didn't have a veto-proof majority. So what's changed about this year? What's been the difference maker?
There's been multiple things that have been different about this year. we hadn't passed a bill. We hadn't even passed fairness in women's sports last year. We had been trying to get that bill passed for 3 years. And so, finally, our supermajority is much stronger and a conservative. Have a much more conservative bent. They understand why the social issues matter. And so that's been a change in this last cycle. And so that has been a huge change. But we also have leadership in both chambers who understand that this issue is important. And you know what? Legislators who voted against Help Not Harm last year, they heard about it. There are multiple members who have said, either on the floor of their chamber or, to us personally, that when we voted against this, my district, my community, they told me that they disagreed with me. They told me that they wanted us to pass this bill. And so that really made the difference of changing their mind. And I think a lot of the time people in the community don't think that their voices matter. They don't think that legislators listen to them. I can tell you they do. I've watched it happen. And so, kindly, gently, if you know your legislator, especially your local legislator, talk to them about things. Tell them that you agree or disagree with their bills respectfully, and that can really make a difference. They may not change their vote, but at least they know that there's a real human in their district who either agrees or disagrees. So that's been a huge change that we've seen this year. But we've also seen our doctors in our both chambers have really led the charge on this bill this year. They've worked together. We've got, I think, 3 doctors in the House and 1 in the Senate who have really worked together to build the best bill, I think, to really help kids and to ensure that they're protected for the long term.
Well, I could not have said that better, Brittany. I absolutely agree. The doctors are critical, combined with the voices of detransitioners and then lawyers like you and I, and then just the voices of the people that are listening to us and in these districts. This is social conservatism on the rise. Just another example of it, folks. And your voices have that power. So I know Brittany will agree with me when I say, please, let's get this bill over the finish line. Make Kansas the 23rd state to protect kids from the incursion of transgender ideology that tries to tell them they were born in the wrong body and that they have to get their body parts mutilated just to conform to how they feel. These are vulnerable children in a very difficult position with their parents, and they need this protection. So please help us hold your legislators' feet to the fire in grace and truth, as Brittany says, and it really does make a difference. And so I want to move on, Brittany, to ask you about another legislative issue where people's voices have really made a difference. And that has been FPA's biggest policy focus, at least nationwide, during this legislative session here in 2024. And that is protecting kids online, specifically through a model policy we support requiring legitimate, effective age verification requirements for pornographic websites and for social media. Now, the bill in Kansas protects kids from pornographic websites specifically. You told me it's SB 394, I believe. So, Brittany,
Yes.
Tell us about the need for that bill in Kansas, and then what the process has been like in getting that really close to passage.
Yeah, so Kansas in 2017 passed a resolution against pornography. It had wide bipartisan support, had some great conversations, and that resolution from now 7 years ago called on the legislature to create policy to protect kids. Well, the immediate question was, well, what can we do? All of these things. And at the time, I was working on the pornography issue, even back then, and we were talking about what can we do, what is going to pass judicial muster, what's actually going to help. And at that time, our hands were kind of tied. It was kind of a weird spot. We didn't know what was going to happen in that arena, and so many laws have been struck down at that point under a really antiquated view of the internet and a really false understanding of the internet. And so we've now seen the progress of time. We are seeing, unfortunately, just a huge rise in children being exposed to pornography accidentally, despite their parents' best efforts. We're seeing that some of the things that courts had relied on before to protect kids weren't protecting kids. But we've also seen the enormous psychological, physical, relational, emotional impacts that pornography has had on our society, but specifically our children. And so that has really created an environment where legislators were ready for something like these age verification bills, where they understood the need for them. And so it's been so exciting for me to be able to partner with FPA and with other organizations to really create what I believe is potentially the gold standard for age verification bills, of how we do this in a way that is upheld in court but protects kids really well. And so we've created SB 394 in Kansas, and it has passed through both chambers now with large bipartisan support. It passed unanimously in our Senate. And so it is now at the governor's desk. We are praying that she will sign it. I've never had a bill signed by our governor before, and so I'm really hopeful this will be the first one. I'm not, we'll see. She's disappointed me before, but I'm really hopeful that she'll sign this one, or at least allow it to become law, because we've seen, no matter what your political ideology is, no matter what even your religious background is, that most of society does not believe that children should be exposed to these pernicious and horrible things that are happening on pornography websites. We know what they are. We know what these sites are, and we know what it's doing to kids. And so it's time to do something about it.
Amen. Well, I just want to encourage the folks listening that I think Brittany is so right to be hopeful that the governor will sign this, because she's right. A lot of the policies we work on, they shouldn't be very divisive, but sometimes they just are in political reality. And having worked with the 7 other states that have passed an age verification bill like this year, and then some of the 7 states passed bills like this last year, I can tell you folks, this is the most bipartisan policy that I think Brittany or I have worked on in at least a very long time. And that should be really encouraging, because it means people of all political, moral, religious persuasions and beliefs, people from all walks of life, are waking up to the danger of pornography, especially to children. We at FPA did identify this at least trend amongst legislators because of this problem we knew about for a long time. And we believe, like I think most people in this audience, and certainly like I know Brittany and her team believe, that parents are the primary guardians of their child's innocence. And in an age of increased technology prevalence, it's just so much easier for kids to stumble upon material like pornography that the research shows is as harmful to them as a hard drug. And they stumble upon it without their parents even noticing it. And Brittany, I want you to just describe how effective the age verification measures required by this bill would be. Because to a lot of people, they hear age verification, they think, oh, I just got to check a box to say I'm over 18 or over 21. That's not how it works, right?
No. And I want to circle back to that parents thing in a second, but yes, no, that's not absolutely. It's not. I had several of my peers come to me who had been addicted to pornography, are thankfully now free through Christ. They're free from pornography, but they asked me when they were looking at this bill, and some of them testified in support of it. They asked, like, do I just check a box to say that I'm 18? No, you don't. Because there are already sites that have you just click a box, but that's not effective. Anybody can get around that. Our bill, and I believe the 8 other bills, require it to be a commercially verified age verification technology. We work with some of the best experts on age verification. There are so many host of really secure ways that you can verify your age now. And you know what? To some extent, it shows me how effective it is because the pornography sites don't want to comply with it. It's working if the pornography sites don't want to comply, as we've seen in other states where they've either filed lawsuits or just stopped operating because they don't want to comply. So they would rather profit off of children than to comply with age verification. We use age verification in so many other areas of our lives, in so many other areas of the government. Even in Kansas, we have sports wagering. They use age verification for that, and everybody thought it was a great thing. But all of a sudden, now that we bring it up to use it to protect kids from pornography, people are freaking out like they've never heard of age verification. So age verification is very effective. It's not perfect, it's not a perfect solution, but it is a really effective solution. And we've had people who testified who I think said it was like 95% effective, which for the internet is fantastic. And so we believe this will protect kids. It's protecting kids in other states. But I've talked to so many parents through this process. It's been a really healing process, I think, for a lot of parents, a lot of now grown adults who struggle with pornography, to go through this process because they were able to share their stories. And we've had quite a few parents that came to me and they're like, I did everything I could to protect my kids. I did everything. They didn't have a phone. They didn't have, the computer was in the main room, all of these things, and their kids still found it. So this has just been amazing. Yeah. So to see how effective this is.
You're absolutely right, Brittany. I want to emphasize one thing that you said, which is that it accomplishes this very effective, in some cases, usually over 95% effectiveness without endangering user privacy. And in fact, that's built into the law. So many of our social conservative audience members will be rightly concerned about user privacy with any internet issue. And I want to assure them, you're getting two lawyers here telling you that through these laws, the liability in the law extends to endangering users' privacy. So the people doing the age verification process are required to ensure that user privacy is protected. And as Brittany said, the evidence in this is the proof is in the pudding. In every state that has passed a bill like this, the largest pornography companies and manufacturers have pulled their service from the state. That's about as effective of a policy objective in this area as we could hope to achieve.
Yes.
So folks, groups like FPA, Kansas Family Voice, and our whole Family Policy Council network are standing against the pornography industry and are being effective at it. It's because of you all and the support you give us. So I just want to highlight that FPA was honored to help Kansas Family Voice a little bit with this effort. It's primarily been you, Brittany, and your team. But FPA did form a coalition, an age verification legislation coalition of like-minded state, federal, national allies, including legislators, but especially including folks like Brittany from our FPCs, to work together to get as many of these bills passed as we can. Kansas is one of 13 states that still could enact this bill this year. So join us in praying for that. And Brittany, it was a pleasure to get to testify, even just remotely, in favor of this bill during its hearing. That was a very comprehensive victory, I thought, for us that you and I don't get to see much. So thanks for all your work on this subject. And just to conclude our time today, Brittany, I know we've highlighted two of your legislative efforts, but Kansas Family Voice has been active in numerous other ones. You guys have had a very busy but very good year. So tell our audience about a couple that you think their social conservative streak in them would really appreciate and like to know about.
Yeah, we've been very busy as usual, trying to ensure that we protect our state from marijuana, an industry that wants to take over our state. And so we have been working on that a lot, but our other really main initiative this year has been protecting kids, which we kind of already talked about, but then helping moms. And so Kansas is in a unique position. We are a pro-life state that is bound by a Supreme Court decision that says that we really cannot do anything to put any guardrails around the abortion industry. And so we've really been pushing to how do we change the culture in Kansas? How do we ensure that moms know they have support while they're pregnant? So we've been looking at things like ensuring that women have child support while they're pregnant to cover pregnancy-related expenses. We've been looking at things like making sure that pregnancy resource centers in our state get a tax credit and that those who donate to them get a tax credit. We've also been looking at expanding our adoption tax credit. That's something we're about to go to the floor on in I think 5 minutes to try to get that bill passed, and doing other things to help families who are adopting, really creating a culture where we value children, where we value moms, where we value families. And so it's been really stretching my brain and making me be real creative and learn and talk about things that I never thought I would have to talk about as a socially minded person. But I'm learning a lot of things about the budget and a lot of things about taxes. So it's fun. But it has just been so exciting to see our state really come together to talk about how we care for moms and how we care for babies. And so I'm really excited to see several of those bills. Two of them already headed to the governor, and there's a couple more that should be heading to the governor in the next 2 days. And so we're really excited about that. But we're so thankful for Family Policy Alliance's help on all of this and assistance and just spreading the word about what's going on in Kansas. I encourage your listeners to continue to pray for Kansas. We're praying that there will be a huge revival in the state of Kansas of just people waking up to what's going on in our state, to getting involved and really calling our state back to the Lord and back to the things that he cares about.
Amen. You all are doing a fantastic job at it. I mean, Brittany, who would have thought that 10 years ago, while we were learning at Regent University School of Law, we'd be here together getting to have this impact because of the people that listen to us and encourage us and pray for us.
Never
so thank you
years.
for your work. Just very quickly, tell us where people can connect with Kansas Family Voice and how they can support your efforts.
Absolutely. So we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's Kansas Family Voice, at Kansas Family Voice. You can also go to our website, kansasfamilyvoice.com. Send us an email, get on our email list. We'd encourage you to do that. We send out normally weekly emails, sometimes more often than weekly, letting you know what's going on in the state. And but our Instagram and Facebook stay pretty up to date on what's going on. We would love to get you connected to what's going on in Kansas, and share any of our ideas with anyone in your state if you're not in Kansas. But it is an exciting time to be doing this work, and we're just so thankful to partner with all of you in it.
Indeed, I encourage everybody to do that, whether you live in Kansas or not. Kansas is a key battleground state. It's an influential state. It's a bellwether. So go follow them, connect with them so you can know what's going on there in that state. And just to close us out, I want to note that Kansas Family Voice is one of what we at FPA call a State Family Policy Council, or an FPC. There are about 40 state family policy councils right now. There's a good chance that there's one in your state. If you have not connected with yours yet, I encourage you to do so by going to familypolicyalliance.com/allies. You've heard from Brittany. She is very exemplary of what your average FPC does for social conservative, pro-family, pro-religious freedom values. So thank you for your support, for your partnership with us. Continue to do that. And we just thank you for your prayers and support for all of us in these efforts. Brittany, thank you for your time. We pray for blessing and more success for you in the rest of this legislative session. And to our audience, thank you for listening. We will be back soon with another episode of the SoCon Report podcast.
Thank you, guys.